We're getting a good turnout here. Hey guys, how you doing? Hey Jim, how you doing, buddy?
Good,
This
Nick. How are you?
yeah. Oh yeah, no, we definitely get some good repeaters here.
I love it.
Jim, how'd your project end up turning out?
It's still turning out. Every
Okay.
around every corner we find some kind of inspection where we need smoke detectors put in. Supposed to be done on 215. I got the guys hustling on it. I'm really looking forward to passing on to my agent and moving on to some projects with you all. So I've been talking to Lauren and my friend Bobby P, and we're going over how to work with Mamba and get the Paul and do all this stuff. So when this gets shipped to the next project, I can start working with you guys hopefully. So I just want to say thanks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're here to help here to support. I'm sorry that this one's dragging out. Unfortunately, that's not an uncommon thing in real estate.
Uh-uh. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to
I
introduce. I've got Lindsay here. He's a buddy of mine. He's the way I'm describing him is a reformed Airbnb property manager. Can talk a little bit about that side of things, but he also,
sounds busy.
yeah, as a contractor himself. So
Yeah.
yeah, so you probably had a couple projects go over time and over budget. Every single one. Yep.
Every single one. Yeah. My first one was supposed to be a $50,000 flip, and $180,000 later, here we are.
It's
Yeah.
the 180.
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
Well,
From 50 to 180?
here's the thing.
I haven't
Was
gone that.
expecting at 80. And then what I wanted to do with it was an extra 60. And then I ran into some problems. But I think learning what I did versus sitting on the sidelines helped. And it's just like a big learning lesson, 100-year-old house, never going to do that again. And if I think I'll break even, maybe even to 16K, maybe. But I can't tell you how much I learned from this that I know what to do next. Now I'm not looking at certain homes in different areas and things like that. So it's too long for this call, but yeah, it's going to be a nice house for somebody.
Well, and here's what I'll say is a lot of times the opportunity, the arbitrage, fundamentally what we're doing in real estate when we're doing construction is we're trying to make an arbitrage between the purchase and rehab costs and the change in value that occurs when you make those things. A lot of times, if you're just doing the cosmetic stuff, if you're just going into a 1990s house that hey just needs new flooring and new paint, there's not a whole lot of arbitrage opportunity there. I've found personally. So sometimes it is the 100-year-old houses that 180s now, that's a big ass number, man. That better be one big house.
It
Um,
is, we built
okay.
enough stalls to it. There's a lot of added value, staircases, things like that. Uh,
Yeah.
we'll go over the numbers. We'll start working with you.
No, totally. And basically the stuff that's really wrong with the house does tend to be the stuff that you get the greatest arbitrage because some homeowner doesn't know how much the foundation should cost to repair it. They don't know how much it should cost to rewire the entire house from knob and tube wiring. Stuff like that. Those are great opportunities to get disproportionate benefit, but they
Yeah.
do cost a decent amount and they do take a pretty long time.
More time, more money, a lot of learning, a lot of lessons. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. Well, this one, if I'm not mistaken, you thought you were going to be done like at the beginning of December?
Yeah, well, December 15th was the start date, and then we had just jumped into a bunch of inspection problems. Some of the joists were not working the way they were supposed to. We had to install smoke detectors. We had to do everything while the walls were still open, and that kind of delayed in the holidays. And the guys on the team were stretched a little bit. So I need an enforcer like Paul. So I need to
Yeah.
get him there and to kind of shake things up and stick on a timeline. Now I'm just looking for, instead of like, how much money I'm going to make, I'm like 8 weeks. I'm starting with the time now and just backing out from there. So just to get enough, I tried to sell this thing as soon as I got it. I knew it was in trouble. I didn't do my due diligence enough. It's like a good case study for everyone on this call. Just because you get impatient looking for the deal and seeing people buying things like that. My mistake was I was looking for 6 months. I finally said, fuck it, I'm going to just buy this one. And I was like, wow, didn't have someone walk it, sight unseen, did a lot of things wrong, learned the lesson. Somehow kind of had these ebbs and flows of, oh, I'm going to make money, I'm going to lose money, I'm going to lose 10K, I'm going to make 10K. And as long as it gets to my agent on 3/1, it's
Yeah.
going to be a really well done house. So I'm happy we rebuilt a house for somebody. It's going to be
Yeah.
great. I don't make any money on it. It's a win for me, but if I can make a couple bucks, that's fine. It's not the way anyone should be doing business, but luckily my wife works and I have some safeguards that I put in place before this, just in case this happened. And it did.
Dude, I love it. And I see a line over here. For anybody who's not familiar, a line is a fellow investor, but also a wholesaler here in the area. I see him taking notes. Like, I got to get this guy's contact info. He's down to break even on houses. Like,
Yeah. Now I'm trying to do two at a time. So I really learned my lesson, right?
No, doing that first one, you learn more doing that first deal than you'll ever learn from reading Bigger Pockets and all that stuff. You gotta get into the weeds. I mean,
Did you say that this one had significant structural issues that you're dealing with?
It's not so much that, it's just I run into a lot of plumbing issues, and we had to do that, and then the wiring was really old, and we said, "Well, the walls are open, let's do this, let's do this. Let's make a nicer staircase than I should. Let's put a dog room under the stairs," and I was trying to think of it like HGTV when I should have really thought of it like, "Hey, you're not living there. This isn't your home. This isn't Good Bones. This is Greenfield. I love it. It's not, doesn't have to look like, a top grade finish." So I did a middle tier sort of remodel, like butcher block countertops. I painted each room pretty fairly neutral, but tubs and showers and rain heads and things like that that I went a little overboard on that I think I'll scale back next time. But we added some square footage. We redid garages. We got it really nice for someone.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
have you thought about holding it?
I have. I'm just waiting for the ARV, seeing what's happening. I'm talking to Mamba. It's either going to be a flip or a hold.
No.
So if I can get the ARV where I need it to be and get it appraised, I might keep it. I might keep 40K in the deal and just wait 2, 3 years and just get my money back that way. Or there's multiple exit strategies I have going in, but burning it is an option right now. We're just coming down to the final stretch, and by 215, I'll know all that information I've been waiting 6 months on.
Yeah. No, I think that's really smart. And what I love to hear there is the multiple exit strategies. I've been sitting here, and I just got my appraisals back yesterday, and I definitely owe my banker an email. I've been ignoring him all day, but yeah, there were a couple of houses I purchased with the intention of flipping them, and bought one. It's on 1410 South Alabama. You guys can actually look it up on Zillow if you're curious. But, bought it for 140. I sunk a lot of money in there. Let me put it that way. I sunk, 6 digits. It's beautiful. I think it's the nicest house we've ever done. Then I had another house on Applegate, not too far from there that I didn't actually sink much money into. I just needed to get some non-performing tenants out, needed to do a couple structural things. I think we only spent about $20,000 there. And I put them on the market, and they were sitting there, and nothing, literally nothing that was selling in Bates Hendricks. Nothing. And despite that being one of the hottest areas in India for the last several years, there wasn't a single finished product that sold over the last 90 to 120 days. It's absolutely incredible. I have no concept for why that happened, but the market just completely cooled off. And I'm sitting there, and we're all into this project for 250, $260,000 when it's all said and done. And I'm sitting there, you know, beating myself up. Paul's sitting there beating himself up because he made me go spend all the money on this project, and go do all the nice finishes and all that stuff. And then, a couple weeks ago, I said, "F it, like, I know how great this house is. I'm not just gonna keep dropping my price into
Right.
into the
Yeah.
wind and have nothing come of it." And so I just said, "Screw it." Like, "Hey, what if instead of, selling it and just dropping price, we decided to refi it instead?" I went in there
Yeah.
with multiple exit strategies, and we did it. And on Alabama, the 1410 South
Oh, yeah.
Alabama, it
Yeah.
appraised above our current asking price. Like, we were freaking thrilled. And so we're gonna 100% burr this project. Same with the Applegate project. We bought it. I think we bought it for like 180. We dropped about 20 into it. And so now we're 250. We're darn near 100%, if not 100% burring that sucker.
Yeah.
Um, but like
Absolutely.
what were incredible losses for me. I was beating myself up on a daily basis that, we weren't going to have the outcome we desired. But how many people would kill for 100% burr? Like, is that not like
Yeah,
what?
it's not easy and sexy as they say, but,
Yeah.
everyone tries to do it. If I can leave 10 or 15K in a burr, that's a win for me because I borrowed my money from my ELOC, and then I kinda could just pay that off slowly over time within 6 months. But
Yeah.
that's not the way I would like to do things. Yeah, burring is sexy in a book. Sure
Oh,
is.
yeah. So,
Dude, Nick, Alabama looks awesome, by the way.
oh, thank you. Well, hey, you're gonna come stay there one of these days. I'm gonna need a 5-star review. So actually, so everyone knows, it's actually technically not off the market. I told my agent to pull it yesterday, but it hasn't come off the market. But what I did is I used the listing photos as my Airbnb just to like get it up there. We've got All-Star Weekend coming up here in like the middle of February. So I just put it up there with the listing photos, which were furnished photos. And we already have like 4 or 5 bookings in the last 24 hours. Yeah. So what that means is now I have to go get that place outfit real
Yeah.
fast. Got a lot of work on my plate here over the next couple of weeks, but
Well, I have been seeing a lot of people selling furniture who wanna run away from Airbnb, so you might get a deal.
Yeah, actually, let's transition to that because I've got an expert here on Airbnb. This guy has done more Airbnb rentals than just about anybody. Do you want to give your background in that world?
Sure. I'd like to caveat this that this is through the lens of someone who absolutely despises Airbnb now. Just through thousands and thousands of bookings.
The bourbon is working.
Like, God, man, it really started making me hate people. But yeah, so ultimately, a business partner and myself, we were both in the military and building our investment companies as we were active duty. We had started to transition some properties into Airbnb, saw some of the financial aspects of that. This is in 2020 that we kind of started pushing some of the Airbnb, and it was like right at the beginning when it became like really popular. Airbnb has been around for a while, but right around that 2019, 2020 is when it really started to grow. I was in Colorado Springs, and which as itself was such an emerging city through this time frame that it it really started to be great. So we both my business partner and I were getting out of the military at the same time, and we wanted to start a company together. So we started an Airbnb management company. Oh, stars in our eyes. Thinking
It's gonna be easy.
it's gonna be easy. You do the math on paper, 20% management fee. We were even at 20%. The cheapest people around Colorado Springs, most were 24, 25%. Doing the math on that. But we're obsessive people in our quality of service and so started to grow that and we started to get clients pretty quickly. Within that, we started to do some analysis on cleaning aspects. We did build a cleaning company to facilitate our units. We were dealing, not to, sound like a dick, but we were dealing in a demographic of people in cleaners that having them as employees was an absolute nightmare. I don't know if any of you happen to, I've run into some people who started cleaning companies. So, but people just wouldn't show up to work because they just don't care. But when you're running an operation as an Airbnb company, that place needs to be cleaned. It needs to be cleaned really well. Um, so some operational constraints there. That's actually when I discovered virtual assistants with the drastic help of this gentleman. We probably went through almost a dozen VAs. We had 4 full-time because they kind of ebb and flow. We had 1 rock star. The other ones, they kind of ebbed and flowed as it went through, as VAs will do. But we grew to about 80 units. We had in 2022, my last year, we had almost 8,000 bookings across the year.
How did the virtual assistants stop people from not showing up?
They didn't. What we did is stopped owning a cleaning company. We sub because what we did is we would limit the amount of units that each cleaning company could do. And as we hired them, we'd get agreements that if another cleaning company failed, that they would be in a triage order, a PACE plan for backfilling that unit. So as one company or one cleaner, because within cleaning, there's a lot of just individual people who start their own little companies. If they didn't show up, we met when we went back to the kind of the 1099 model, we had 17 cleaning companies under us. And so it wasn't that difficult for one to backfill the other. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the VAs were huge because of messaging. Even within the company, and this will kind of tie to some of the burnout. I averaged probably about 600 text messages a day within our various group chats. And I'm trying to run my own real estate investment company. I'm trying to run contractors on my own remodels. I'm a general contractor as well. So Nick would get multiple calls where I'm just halfway down a whiskey bottle and just having a tough time. Just at the end of the day. But yeah, so kind of it just got to a boiling point for me of saturation, 7 days a week because one thing the VAs also don't do is take the calls in the middle of the night when something happens. Because Airbnb guests think that everything's an emergency. So the call that they can't find a light switch because they got home drunk at 12:30 in the morning, and then it's my problem that they don't know how to find a light switch. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? But my obsessive nature, I will always answer that phone call because the standard of my company matters so much. Um, So I don't know if there's like specific operational things that you want me to touch on within management at that scale,
I don't
or if anyone
necessarily.
has any particular.
Yeah, I mean, let's open it up. We've got an expert here when it comes to Airbnb and rehab. So, and then you obviously have Paul here, who's done quite a bit of rehab within the Indianapolis market.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions or directions you wanted to go, I figured I'd just bring the smart people here, and then I get to sit back and let the two of them talk.
Yeah.
I guess a general question on my behalf, if you know, what's the outlook for Airbnb moving into the future? And I guess this would be like an indie specific question, but yeah, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts for Airbnb in the future?
Sure. So India, obviously, I can't speak to. I don't live here. I'm just, yeah, passing through. We're moving across the country, and I like personal time with him when I can. I'm looking at buying some units here, but they'll be long-term rentals. I can speak kind of to the Colorado Springs market, and it may have some commonalities.
Yeah.
And Paul, you said was the other one who handles them here.
Well, I've got a couple of thoughts on
Okay.
local Airbnbs.
Sure.
Yeah.
But for me, what I see in Colorado Springs, and there may be some commonalities. This ties to also how I remodel. My wife and I remodel with the best finishes. We don't, not so much the most expensive finishes, but we remodel every aspect of a unit. I want someone to walk in there and be wowed. And I believe that when someone goes into a unit that's of a certain caliber, that's how they treat it. That's for both how I view long-term and short-term. So in remodel, we still have 4 Airbnbs in Colorado Springs. They are all beautiful. And it's because I think that in the long term, as a financial analysis, I want a quality product for someone. I want their experience to be amazing, as opposed to my maximum cash flow. And now, granted, with that model, they book out like crazy because my pictures are amazing. I pay for amazing pictures. If you don't have amazing pictures, stop being cheap. Go out and pay a couple $100
Yeah, 100
for
$200.
it makes such a difference. But then your little decor items that you put up when people are trying to cut on a $300 expense for decor around their whole listing, you make that back in 2 bookings, you know?
Yeah.
So the people around Colorado Springs, it became so saturated that the people that put in that effort continued to get bookings. Now, Airbnb as a whole, I'll tailor your question basically to what occupancy and kind of looks like, because there's some things that I think are going to turn into Airbnb with their lack of support of hosts, and that can be a second thing that we touch on. But in terms of occupancy rates, uh, if you put the money in, I believe that you can still get the money out if you purchase in the right area. If Nick will give the analysis on Airbnb as indie specific, how travel looks here. But so that's kind of the simplistic answer that I'd say. If you put the money in, you're still getting the money out, and I don't think that that's going to change for the foreseeable future. Especially in potentially in smaller units, because I know for us, a lot of times, if we don't have the pup with us, we stay in hotels for small units because the cleaning fee is not worth it.
Yeah.
The greed that is coming in cleaning fees, not only from the owners, but from the cleaners of what they're charging is incredible. And it's priced some places out, doesn't make sense. Now, when I can split a place, like my flagship property, that was a $350,000 remodel in Cheyenne Canyon. That place books out $400 or $500 a night. It's incredible, but you can put 12 people in it, hot tub, all the, you can pack that full. I'll still do that when I'm traveling with a group.
Yeah.
So does that kind of answer your question? It's kind of my thoughts on that city specifically. But I think that there's some commonalities that can tie to Indy.
Yeah. So, I think that was absolutely fantastic. By the way, I'm going to be on, if you guys are podcast listeners, I'm actually on the upcoming TNA podcast episode. We talk a lot about midterm rentals and short-term rentals. And TNH, for anybody who's not familiar, is one of the largest property managers here in Indianapolis. They've got like 1,200, 1,300 doors long-term, and they wanted to talk about the short-term side because that's not their expertise. With that in mind, I think there are a couple market dynamics that have occurred here. 2020 pulled up so much demand in terms like in such a shift in the market from people were in hotels and those kind of weirdos were willing to go on Airbnb because it was cheaper at that time. At that time it was a better opportunity. It pulled up so much demand because nobody wanted to go stay in a hotel. Nobody wanted to catch COVID from the person next to them. So the idea of these houses did really well. So that pulled up all this demand, and to follow that demand, because nightly rates started to go up, so much supply hit the market. Everybody and their mom decided that they were going to be an Airbnb host, put their crappy little, $120,000 house on Airbnb. And you know what? They freaking killed it for a couple of years. But there's been a backlash in the people out there. Like Lindsay was saying, yeah, this guy, he ran hundreds of Airbnbs, yet he still, if he's not traveling with his dog, is going to go stay in a hotel. A lot of people have that same feeling. Guests or hosts got greedy. They started to charge too much for cleaning and still expecting you to go clean the unit on the front end. Otherwise, you would get, extra fees. The quality of the units was inconsistent. And hotels have come back in a huge way. They have a lower operating cost on a per unit basis than any house that's out there because, they've got multiple cleaners in that one building. So for all those reasons, I think we're seeing a backlash against Airbnb. With that in mind, there's an incredible demand for good properties. Good quality properties are still doing very, very well. It's the crappy properties that are struggling. It's the $120,000, $150,000 houses in Wayne Town, like the kind of, the stuff that you wouldn't actually want to stay in. But the ones that have high design have an opportunity to do really well. There are a variety of reasons why somebody chooses an Airbnb. One, it's generally cheaper on a per head basis if you're in a larger unit than going to a nice hotel that's similar. Two, it's a unique experience. Three, you're able to bring a pet. Four, and I don't think this is probably talked about in is people are able to do kind of unique things with the properties. They're able to go and talk, we're sitting right here staring at a ping pong table that we've been playing with for the last hour or so. There's arcades, stuff like that you get to create a unique and new experience for these people. And then, finally, the last one is just it's almost like wish casting. If you've got a really nice place, somebody might not be able to afford to buy that place, but they sure as heck can rent it for a night or two and take their significant other out. So lots of reasons why Airbnbs can still do well, but the lowest common denominator, I think, is just going to struggle.
Sure, and I think, you raise a point there. It's like the ability to add the amenities, but like doing it right is a couple $1,000s, you
Yeah.
know? Who in here has Airbnbs and long-term rentals besides this guy? Do any of you?
I know Flora does. I think Eddie does. Oh yeah,
Okay.
we got
Chime in.
David.
Can you tell me, what do you look at for a financial return on your long term? And then what do you look at for a financial metric as you're looking at an investment for a short term? And just general numbers, ROI, cash flow per unit per month, whatever it may be. Anybody
Being
that
put on the
adds
spot
bulk.
here.
I can share a bit. For my
Yeah.
long-term rental, I'm focusing on the AB class. I'm looking to break even in terms of cash flow.
You're talking about long term?
Yes, for long term.
Okay, what about short term?
For
No,
short term,
Just to clarify, Flora does a really good job in her analysis as well. She's accounting on a monthly basis for repairs and capex that are going to happen eventually. She's accounting for vacancy. She's accounting for like the lease up fee that's going to occur. So she's not just talking about the
Super protecting herself.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what she's talking about from a break even perspective. Let me know if I'm misspeaking there, Flora.
yeah, you're totally right. I'm looking for better tenant base, so breaking even conservatively makes sense to me.
Okay. Because you're getting the other four benefits of owning rental property: appreciation, loan pay down, inflation hedging, and the tax benefits. Gotcha. So you're
Which I think are the best parts,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. All right. And so then
Or-
how you
yeah.
compare that to, I know you've got obviously an absolutely beautiful Airbnb midterm rental that might be on Off Leash Construction's website as a past project. We didn't put your address on there, but I want you to know
Shameless pro.
100%. Like you've got one hell of a beautiful Airbnb out there in Noblesville.
I love it. But I don't want to know the return that it does. I want to know what your goal for it was.
For me, because I have a W-2, the main goal is to reduce my tax using short-term rental loophole.
So then you are a bad example for the example I was trying to make, because you're like, I would have loved you as a client. So the point that I expected to be able to make is what and this ties again to my nightmare of why I left the company was the so I imagine most people are bigger pockets people here.
Mhm.
I don't particularly listen to it anymore, but I was a big fan. That's actually how I met Nick in the
Yeah.
David Green thing.
Yeah.
Nick and I were in a David Green mastermind a couple years ago. The Brandon Turner's like ideal metric for a long-term rental is accounting, same way Florida does, accounting for vacancy, CapEx, maintenance, et cetera, management, lease
Yeah.
up fees, whatever it may be. I just side management as a whole. Was $200 a unit per
Yeah.
door or $200 per door. And it was like a 12% cash on cash return. We had a Airbnb guest that had a beautiful unit. He made it his retirement plan and made he netted like 70 grand his first year. And he was so unhappy with us and our management of that and it was so exorbitant the amount of money he made that I started to look at our company across different people and I kept seeing that over and over that people looked at Airbnb as this financial home run like they wanted to make thousands of dollars a month. And that just I had such an issue with that. Like it was just there was a it's I don't yes, there was a greed aspect, but there was like a delusion aspect to it too.
Yeah.
As the analysis of that. And that's why I just kind of wanted to see where you guys were at and chime in that like I think it's important to not analyze an Airbnb property like that. Or it kind of ties to your same thing with the Burr strategy. When Burr first came out, everyone wanted 100% Burr. They wanted this infinite return on investment when I can't see the names on everybody, but the gentleman in the top left, who was speaking
Jim.
earlier, Jim, you leave 20 grand in a deal, your cash on that could be 30%, it could
Yeah.
be incredible. And I've
Oh,
had multiple
I
properties that
I remember the one reason I didn't want to get into Airbnb was I got a lot of properties in 2020, and some of them were 3%, 4% investment property, 30-year fixed money beating inflation. I was like, okay, gobble up as much as you can. It's COVID, it's risky. But then I was like, I started to hear that the taxes on Airbnb were 3% instead of 2% for like there were some kind of things, and maybe some of the cash out refis that I could do with long-term rentals, they didn't like them for short-term rentals. So I got a little scared about the exit strategies for short-term rentals because even though it may cash flow a little bit more, I thought I might have been trapped in there and I couldn't use my exit strategies to the fullest. Then I saw a lot of people getting into it and I said, I'm just going to stick to my $300 cash flow properties, let them appreciate. I got lucky. I'm not saying anything other than that. 2020 was just a mystery year for me. I thought I was the smartest guy in the world. And then 2022, 2023 got a little bit harder and interest rates doubled. So it hasn't been a clear path, but I was definitely a little scared to do Airbnb. And finally, when I understood the numbers and the metrics, it was too saturated for me, or I didn't know enough about like getting that massive home with the pool and the hot tub and the ping pong tables and make it more like an experience.
Yeah.
I was thinking more like Bates Hendricks, it's hot. Let's do that.
yeah, talking about the experience aspect just made me draw a blank on what I was gonna say. So,
I distracted you. My bad.
yeah,
I do love well,
oh, that was is I think something that we saw too is when people with these, stars in their eyes about the profit metrics, when you take in a 20% management fee and all your furnishings and then utilities, because you want to talk about people that, you look at long term and if the owner pays utilities, like that person's gonna take pretty long showers. Like when you have an Airbnb,
Oh my
that
God.
that shower is 3 hours.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they just leave it on out of spite. And, but the money is like not as much as people think it is.
Yeah.
It is something that, you don't really account for the use of that property.
Can you talk a little bit about, so, and I don't think this is an uncommon opinion amongst a lot of people. 20% is a shitload of money to be paying a property manager. I mean, it's a huge dollar figure. What what do you think just 20-25 percent? What do you think justifies that from that perspective? And I'm couching this in, I think property managers are worth their weight in gold if you find a good one. So like I'm curious from your side, having to sell the 20-25%. Like what
I will give the perspective as someone that I will shamelessly, confidently say that I was an excellent Airbnb manager because I would just be obsessed to the point that it drove me to being unhealthy. That obsessive nature, and that's what you're paying for. It's the It's this, I suppose the person needs to do an analysis of the value of their time, you know, because there's an aspect that people just don't know what they're doing.
Mhm.
You know, managing a short-term rental is so drastically different in terms of the messaging, the nuance of the complaints that'll come in, things of that, managing Airbnb as a corporate structure. Uh, you know, that can tie to kind of, if we make a second point, our thoughts on as hosts, what may change with the support of Airbnb, but like it is a profession in itself navigating Airbnb's rules that can change at any time. Um, most it's access to management. Most short-term managers don't want that constant engagement. You know, especially at scale, which as an individual client, it's not your problem that I have 7,000 bookings across my company. Like I had to talk to my business partner about that, where it's like he would use that as an excuse sometimes if something was missed. I was like, "Max, that's not their problem. Like, we need to give them, as their singular entity, the best service possible and not miss anything for that singular property. If we can't do that, then we need to look at our overall structure
Mhm.
and customer service." Um, so it's really just that. It's taking this daily, constant 24/7 workload off of your plate and doing a so if I'm talking to a client, you know, I'll talk to them about I call them at 11:30 at night for some stupid thing that I've dealt with recently that's a real life example. What is it worth to you to not deal with that? And I make them put a number on it. You know, like, what is your sleep worth to you?
Yeah.
Because 4 times a week, I'm gonna get a call. Well, it also vary on the conversation of how have they remodeled their unit?
Yeah.
You know, what do I think their maintenance or complaint aspect's gonna be? But I just for me as a owner, I'm a very direct person, and there's times that I'm not very professional. Frankly, I think just being genuinely honest is such a virtue. But I would have them do that. Look, what are these examples that are going to happen in your unit? Put a dollar on it,
Yeah.
and tell me genuinely what is that worth to you?
Well, and things happen. Things happen in units, especially when somebody is there on, vacation, yeah, or the place has been vacant for 4 or 5 days, somebody shows up. Things happen during in empty houses. Break-ins happen, unfortunately. That's a real thing. Frozen pipes happen. This has been something we've been dealing with in one of our Airbnbs. Like, the pipes froze, and we had to cancel bookings. Like, that sucks, and having somebody to handle that on your behalf and go tackle those things, I think
Yeah.
is pretty huge. And then holding your cleaners accountable, I think, is another thing. Like, you having one Airbnb, you might not have very much sway with a cleaner or with a service provider, but Lindsay, who's got 100 units that he's managing, probably has a little bit more sway with that particular person.
Yeah. A lot of our cleaners, like were we were their employer. Like we were so big that they didn't have another job to go to. So their job literally depended on it.
Mhm.
You know, and I will say this is I would never try to like sell someone on something. I was like, you know what? Manage it yourself. And let's see. If you don't want the 20%, I believe in giving. Like there's software that I swear by for Airbnb. And I'd be like, this is my software stack. Set it all up yourself. Go conquer. If you have questions, I love helping. If you have a couple questions here and there, hit me up. 100% of them within a month hired us.
Yeah.
100%.
And so I 100% know who's going to ask this question, but Flora's going to ask you, what's that software stack? What do you use?
Sure. So it's called something else now.
Guesty?
No, Hospitable is the company, and my phone's upstairs. But if you look up what Hospitable, it's either the current name or that's what the old name was, but it's the same company. That's the software stack for managing your cleaners, as well as messaging. It's got a ton of automated stuff that you can set rules,
Yep.
auto replies, and the auto replies are vital. Price Labs, the most important piece of software that I had among anything was Price Labs. New Airbnb Lindsay every Sunday would sit on his couch and I would pull up all of my listings. You know, I had probably 15 or 20 listings at this point, and I would do an analysis of the units that I could see in a half-mile radius or whatever it may be, depending on where I was in the city. I would pen and paper what the occupancy was that I could see on the calendar, what their rates were, and do my own formulas. And then we grew, and that got out of hand. Also, what I realized is that even at a lesser extent, I can't see the units I can't see at that point. Price Labs gives you access to every unit. It doesn't matter whether they're booked or not. You can see them all. And then they have the most incredible customer. Did I tell you the customer service? Did I set you up with that?
Yeah, you did.
The customer service people there are so great. You get on the phone with them and you can I built out like an algorithm table based on occupancy and lead time so that it would auto adjust on all these percentage rates, plus or minus based on that. And everything was just done automatically. And I would wave top it like seasonality. I had then went in, I had one of the VAs look up for every city I was in, because we were throughout the Front Range and up into like Breck and things like that. I would look at all the local holidays, and then I would build out a special calendar rates for these different holidays in all the different areas, and it automates everything. And if you want the maximum price that will actually rent, because it does a price based on ability to rent, because who cares if you charge $1,000 a night if it never rents?
Yeah.
Automating all of that is the single thing that will make you the most money. If there's one piece of software that you pay for,
Price Labs.
it's Price Labs.
And what I'll just say is the software I use is a little bit different from the booking side. It's I use Guesty for hosts.
Same thing.
Your Porter it used to be called Your Porter. They got acquired by Guesty. It's an absolutely fantastic tool. You can do all the same messaging stuff. Same with the cleaners. We have automated stuff go to the cleaners. Automated stuff go to the customers. In addition to, they now have built-in pricing. I haven't used it, but they've got a built-in Price Labs type of competitor.
We did it with Hospitable, and it messed up constantly.
Okay.
So
So just use
we
Price Labs.
stopped.
They're great.
They are so great, and they will. The thing about, I've never used Guesty. I'm a Hospitable guy. Hospitable
That's how I
will say,
describe you.
yeah, fair. Will say that they don't officially work with any other third-party software, but it does work. You just need to check up on it sometimes just to make sure that the calendars are still synced, and because all the calendars need to talk to each other. So that's like one of the Wavetop things. But if you have if you're at a lower, you only have a couple of units, you have one VA, like you can just train them just to do these things. And we got to the point that we had them check every morning. It was just, they had like these are the first 5 things that you do when you come on shift, because it takes a minute.
Yeah.
So just looking at that. But if Guesty never has that problem,
I've never had
account,
to.
yeah, then maybe Guesty's the answer.
Yeah.
Same principle of service though.
Yeah. Automate your messaging.
100%.
I would say for us, we only self-manage a couple of units. I think it's 4 or 5 total. But on all those, I think maybe 1 out of every 5 customers do we actually have to have an interaction with, which is amazing.
Well, it speaks to the quality of your units.
Yeah, quality of the unit, and then the quality of the messaging in advance.
Yeah.
It's like the proactive messaging, getting ahead of questions.
With that point, I want to touch quick on the Airbnb support operational aspect for hosts, because I've started to look actually at insurance housing as something that I'm looking at. They're paying a lot, and I've had some investor friends that are having great experience with that. We've used Furnish Finder through the winter months. The winter's super slow, like January, February. In Colorado Springs, using kind of that medium term. It's not as much cash flow, but it's longer term tenants. The insurance thing can actually be incredible cash flow. I had a friend, they rented theirs for like $6,000 a month. It was amazing. Yeah. But Airbnb now has a caveat within almost all of their literature that the final determination for any of their rules is up to them. It's phrased in a little bit more legalese, but basically they deny everything.
Oh, I'm aware.
Most everything. And I've multiple times, I've pulled up their rule sheet and said, this falls definitively within, I'm a very detailed person. This is your essay of how all of this falls into your rules. And they say, their answer is a snippet of the bottom of their rule sheet. We reserve the right to make the final determination. And I think that they've scaled so much and they're probably getting so many claims that it's like, insurance companies with hail now in a lot of places, like they just wiped it out from their policies. But I think that is going to really affect the market in the next year or so. I think people are going to be like me, like right now I'm still holding on, but it's going to get to the point where I'm sick of the way some people treat my unit. Our flagship place that I talked about in Cheyenne Canyon, we went and stayed there because we just sold our primary as we're moving. And I went into the basement and we have a dartboard and there are holes everywhere. We have corkboard, like I'm talking like 3 feet off to the side of the dartboard. Then I look up in the ceiling. There's like 30 holes in the ceiling from darts. So we just pulled the dartboard out, but it's like we tried to file a claim for that, and it was like nothing.
Yeah.
Like they just don't care. So I'm interested to see. My personal opinion is I think that we're going to see a lot of owners pulling out of the market just because of the way that they're treated or lack of support from Airbnb, and how that ties to saturation. I don't know. We'll see. You know?
I think you're totally right. We are still fighting Airbnb on a claim where a client went in there, clearly vandalized our unit. They basically pulled the breaker out of the wall for the furnace. They took the battery out of the thermostat, and they actually went down in the basement, opened up, and fiddled with our furnace to like get a free night or something. I don't know what they were trying to accomplish, and we're still fighting
Yeah.
on that months later. So, or like a month later. So yeah, I think you're totally right. Airbnb is very much customer focused, and they may have a backlash eventually from the hosts. Guys, you have an expert here. What question? Yeah, Flora, I knew you were going to have a question.
Send it.
Yeah, I was wondering about the Airbnb claims. Like, wouldn't you guys have insurance already for the house? Why would you go to Airbnb then?
Would I have insurance on the house?
Yeah, like every house says we have the landlord insurance for short-term rentals too, right? So why would they go to an Airbnb for claims?
Because it doesn't. Your insurance is going to have a deductible that everyone
2,500.
everyone's policy is going to be set up. If it was if someone flooded my house, I would go to Airbnb first, but I would anticipate that I'm going to just use my own insurance. You're going to Airbnb because you have $100,000 coverage of allegedly. Actually, no, it's like $1 million, isn't it?
I think it's $1 million.
They say, which is complete bullshit. But there's no deductible for it. So if I can avoid spending any money on a catastrophic event, then I'm going to use that. In terms of the general claims that you file with Airbnb, the most common ones are, I would say, in my experience, are probably broken chairs. Would be the number one thing, broken chairs or broken table legs.
Really?
100%. Yeah,
Huh.
people, I don't know what they do with them, or they're
Americans are
standing on them. The Americans are fat. That is accurate. But that would never be, you couldn't file a personal insurance, homeowner's insurance claim for that. So it's really a delineation of what falls under each insurance policy, separate from the sheer cost aspect of your deductible.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
The thing is, the deductible is normally not too high. It's like a few thousand, like 2,000. For me, it's 1,500.
But they're probably not going to cover your furniture in the house.
They don't. Yeah. It's, unless you have a drastically different homeowner's insurance policy than I do. If I have a broken lamp that's $25, I'm not going to my insurance company for that, let alone your insurance company arcs you for every claim that you file with them. So you can have rate change effects, things like that through the years.
You get denial.
Which we've had. You can get denial to a certain point. Yeah. But it's just, I would never go to, for me, it's USAA on most of our properties. I would never go to them for a broken chair. But, we have so many bookings that if a chair or a lamp or all the little $25 things that break, that adds up to quite a decent amount. Our higher end units, honestly, I don't even file a claim. I just eat the cost because the nightly rate's so high. And I'll adjust the review for them if they're not honest about it. But if someone messages me and say they broke some glasses, that's actually, I'm wrong. The most common thing is a glass breaking. If they message me and admit to it, I'd never charge them. Never. We buy it by the case. It's like 20 glasses at a time. Just I appreciate and respect your honesty. In that aspect, I guarantee myself a 5-star review, which is far more valuable than anything with an Airbnb. You'll make that glass, at that point, a glass costs what? $1.50,
How much would you pay for a 5-star review? Especially early on. I've paid a lot of money for 5-star reviews.
Yeah, it's significant. I've paid does anyone here work for Airbnb?
No.
Nick, by the way, you shouldn't have mentioned that. I can't wait to stay at Alabama now for $700.
I absolutely, when I stand up a unit, I have friends either stay or don't stay. and eat because if they don't stay, there's still admin Airbnb, things like that. So depending on the unit, because you can't if you do this, do not drop the price because Airbnb will flag it and remove the review. You got to just go full price, everything.
Eat the fee.
Eat the fee. So I'll eat $100 a listing, $150 a listing on a high-end Airbnb
Hell yeah.
because you don't even show stars until you get 3 reviews.
Oh, I didn't know
And
that.
yeah, you don't register until you get 3 of any kind, but you want those 3 to be 5-star, obviously.
Yeah. Anything less than a 5-star review is a fail. It's not actually a 5-star system. It's a thumbs up, thumbs down system.
100%. And if depending on the time of season or time of the quarter for superhost status that you list the unit, you need, I think, 10 stays to have to even qualify for superhost. So if you start your listing in the last month of that quarter, then you need to hammer home some single night stays to get, because I filter by superhost. I won't stay at a non-superhost. So as a host, you need to jam 10 stays out somehow. If you're not getting bookings, you might be paying for 10 friends to stay at your unit, so which is invaluable, especially if you're doing it in the winter when you're not getting stays. And like for me in Colorado Springs, if I list in February, I'm not getting stays. I love when I go like this, it gives me a thumbs up on the screen. But I'm not getting stays, so I'm paying, frankly, for some of those people to stay, or not stay, whatever.
He needs to rehydrate over here. Ask him some questions.
This is like a question. It's maybe a little random, and maybe this is off of experience, but I've always wondered, like, especially like that unit that you're talking about that you own, for people that go all the way in the deep end to like the really nice stuff, where it's maybe like $1 million house that who God knows how much the mortgage is on it. How does one make sure that taking that gamble, even though the nightly cost might be or seem high, how do you know you're going to book that much to even invest into something of that nature? Because with other properties, there might be other exit strategies, but in general, yeah, for like the really high end ticket stuff where you might need to have groups of 15 to even cover that, that seems like a pretty like you're jumping on into the deep end with a lot of risk, are you not? Or what's the steps to making sure that likely works or most likely will work?
100%. So here's the thing: is again, this is Lindsay's opinion, but I would never analyze. Which is, as I've looked at these, it's so hard for me not to curse. As I've looked at, as I'm working a 1031 right now, I can come across so much that people are listing based on a pro forma based on Airbnb. I never would analyze a property off of Airbnb numbers. If you are buying so I would never buy a $1 million or $1.5 million Outer Banks house or Destin, Florida house that, even though there's proof of concept in a lot of those places that it works, I'm not confident enough in Airbnb in the long term for that to ever be a metric. Because I'm not, let alone with interest rates now, I'm not eating a $12,000 mortgage. That then what am I going to do with that property? I'm never long-term renting that for anything close to that. For me, my flagship property it's about a $900,000 house, but it's a house and it has a separate cottage in the back.
That's a really cheap house, dude. I can't find $9,000 houses here in Indy.
No, 900,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
$9,000.
No, 900,000.
But that's what I
And
heard.
that was a $350,000 remodel that we've leveraged a HELOC. We're going to run out of time, but one of my biggest strengths is creative financing and leveraging different things, or commercial loans, things like that. We leveraged HELOC across to that, but we have the cottage that I put an addition on in the back that rents for $1,700 a month. The large house in the front that is a home run of Airbnb currently, that place will easily rent for probably $3,500 a month for long-term rent there. We bought that at a owner occupied because my mother-in-law is on the loan. I renovated the cottage for her. She ended up not staying out there, but our numbers analysis on that is just fantastic because I saved so much in doing the work so this is kind of an outlier example, but my all in on that house is probably 700,000. Where, so I'm making 5,000 a month in long term on a $700,000 house at a 2.4 interest rate. That place is amazing for me.
Yeah.
but that's how we looked at that house. Granted, through May through September right now, that place makes 10 grand a month, 12 grand a month in Airbnb. But I'm so protected there. You know,
So what I'm hearing there, and I think what's important is, yeah, Airbnb is great. You can make a lot of money on Airbnb. Have a backup plan. Like if regulations change, if for whatever reason you can't run that as an Airbnb anymore, don't want to run that as an Airbnb, don't be trapped. You have a decent
Mhm.
backup plan that if you needed to, you could turn that into a long-term rental.
So I'll say this. I do not pay for management on that house currently. So I saved 20% because part of my buyout for my company was the company to continue managing my properties for 2 years. Because I didn't want to gut the company of their finances for my buyout. So I was like, just pay it off through my own management. I've got a bunch of Airbnbs. When that contract is out, despite being a ton of money, we will likely convert that to I already started reaching out to insurance companies to look at it as insurance housing. I will probably potentially shut that place down. Just for my own bandwidth. The extra after 20% I'm eating on that, at 2 grand a month. Like if I can make six through some other place, but I can make seven through, or you can think as across the year on my slow months, I'm probably averaging 7,000 a month through that place. If I can make 6 and not eat that fee, like, I'm gonna do a hard analysis on that, and also just not have the headache of Airbnb at that point, I'm not gonna walk into it and someone's throwing 40 darts into my wall.
So fundamentally, it's a different business, and I think everybody should understand this. When you're in a long-term rental or even like a midterm rental, you have a lot more control as the owner of the property. When you're doing a short-term or a short-term rental, that is a hospitality business. You are bending over
100%.
backwards to kiss these people's ass. And if you don't, you're not going to be successful. And so it's a very different power dynamic that exists.
Yeah, if you cannot you think about, like, what is an emergency is if most of you have long-term rentals, you can, like, completely delineate what is an actual emergency or not, and even some things that might push the line, you can probably wait till the next day. Whatever that customer, whatever that guest thinks is an emergency because you are so beholden to the five-star review.
Yeah.
And that is something that I am not only did I separate myself as an owner of that, despite it being it's continued to grow. It's a very successful company. We did a really good job. I am going to look at divesting myself from that even as a, owner now of my own properties. Yeah.
All right. I have one question and then I'll open it up for everybody else. But there's somebody who I know is going to listen in to this call and he's going to want to hear the answer to this. Um,
I love it.
yeah, I know. Floor's great. Floor's always great for the conversation. I'll get to you here in a moment. Um, a lot of people struggle with managing their managers. And yeah, I'm sure you've been on the other side of that quite a bit. So from that perspective, if I'm an owner and I have several properties with a particular short-term property manager, what metrics should I be holding that person to, or that manager to justify or understand that they're being successful, that they're doing enough that I can be hands off the wheel?
Sure. So we've dealt with this with a bunch of clients. The couple things that I'm looking at as a client or as a manager that I think are valid when a client comes to me, or if a client comes to me with some goal, the metrics that I'm going to pull up are occupancy rate, and I'm going to back that up with hard data on analysis of occupancy rate across the city. And there's different ways that you can get that. But it doesn't matter if you're looking at this from a client-based aspect because you're not going to pay for those services. I'm going to look at the review basis because if you have a complaint as a client and I've got all 5-star reviews, I'm going to tell you, leave me alone. Your profit metrics, I only tie those in. Those are your own analysis of whether you did a good job as an investor or not. I wasn't part of that initial process.
You didn't buy the house.
What's that?
You didn't buy the house.
I didn't buy the house. I've guided you on furnishings. But I will again, I'm a very prepared person. I will pull up cost and occupancy rates, because you can get this in Price Labs, the best service. Just reaffirming that. As I look at other places that are actual comparable, one of the worst things that clients would do is be like, this property rents for this. Why are you only like rents for 500 a night? Why are you only charging 200? Well, I pull up their calendar and they have 0 bookings.
Yeah.
And no, like they're just nothing, where it ties to like you can charge anything you want. So my credibility and my validity is as a data based backed answer is what it's going to be. So to kind of a long-winded answer to that, I'm going to look at with back data, I'm going to look at your occupancy rate. I'm going to look at a comparative occupancy rate and nightly booking rate that I will have multiple comparisons, the same way you'd analyze any comparables in any rental. And then I'm going to look at reviews. If I am succeeding in all of those, then I am, depending how friendly you are, it will depend how friendly I am in my answer, tell you to pound sand. Or my biggest strength is that if I look at that and your complaint is valid, I am going to humble myself hard as to, hey, you know what? Until I fix this next month, you're not paying a management fee. Let's both succeed here. I'm messing up in some way, and this is the way that I think I am. This is my plan for how to fix it. And if I can't fix it, then either find someone else, or I'll give you the analysis that I think that your Airbnb may just not be successful.
Good. I love that answer.
Yeah.
Circling back, Flora, what was your question?
I have 2 questions. So if you were to buy an Airbnb turnkey, what would you ask the previous owner for?
So it's already been running? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Yes.
Couple things. One, is it their only Airbnb? Because if it's not, it's likely shared under a profile and you cannot get that listing. You will have to start your own. So, and that is a big thing, because if you can't carry that reputation over, you're starting from scratch. Depending where that is, that may be a hurdle that you cannot overcome. Especially if you're in an area that's super mature. Like say you're trying to start a new unit in Pigeon Forge or something like the Smokies. It's the mecca of Airbnbs. Like you have a brand new unit, unless it is just out of this world stellar. It's a $1.5 million, experience. Like you're probably not digging out of that hole. Number 2, we ran into this in Colorado Springs with regulations. Permits don't transfer. There's city permit restrictions change constantly. Now there's a 500-foot ring around new permits for non-owner occupied. Now you could lie in new owner occupied with some loopholes in that particular city. But then ultimately
He doesn't think that's a good idea.
I don't think that's a good idea. You're falsifying documents legitimately, but that's my point. If people do that,
Yeah.
I'm just giving, I mean that very genuinely.
Yeah.
I don't think that you should falsify documents, but to each their own, your own risk tolerance. Those would be my 2 biggest things. The third is your opinion of this will be based on the review metrics. And because they'll give you a P&L statement for the property and you'll do your own analysis. This ties to my previous statement I just thought of. Don't buy a property based on Airbnb P&L is my advice to you. If you are looking at a property based on Airbnb that you're buying turnkey, they are most likely running that number of that purchase price based on that pro forma. If you can't back that up in something that you are comfortable with, but you seem super comfortable in just breaking even with your proper backstop analysis of CapEx, maintenance, and vacancy, and things like that, then I'm just not buying that property. So if you're looking for how to truly analyze a pro forma based on Airbnb, I'm not your guy. And I don't want to give you that analysis because I fundamentally don't believe in it. But I hope the other metrics to that answer help.
And so my secondary answer is that Paul doesn't want you to buy any turnkeys. He wants to go fix them up because he has fun working with your designer.
I'm happy to hear that.
Flora, what was your second question there? I think you asked one question about the turnkey.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Did my answer to that trigger any secondary question within that thread of thinking?
Oh yeah. So would you ask for, let's say, past utility bills or past booking data?
But that should be you shouldn't have to ask for. I mean, I guess you'd ask for the backup proof of it, but the P&L that you get should list all of that.
Pro formas, though, from what I've found, are total baloney. Like, unless you are smart enough to ask the questions, like they're going to provide you as little as humanly possible that like shows the best possible numbers. For instance, I'm looking at this building down in Bloomington. I'm doing my damnedest. Like, I want to buy this building, and they came up with a valuation on this building of $9 million based on over $200,000 a year of not income. They're saying that they have a lease, but it's not actually, they haven't collected a dollar on that $200,000 in the last 2 years. Like, people lie on their pro formas and lie is in the nicest way possible on a regular basis in order to sell to people who don't know the questions to ask.
Sure. And like that's the difference between income and expenses within the pro forma. Like you're 100% always getting in a multifamily or whatever, a multi-unit building, you're always getting, leases and things like that, like the certified documents. And I think honestly, you're probably right is, I probably trust too much I'll be honest, if I do a self-analysis in that if someone says this is the utility and they built out you can also tell looking at a P&L if it's a bullshit P&L. Like
It's too good.
if it's just like a Word document P&L, like that's someone who doesn't have a bookkeeper or doesn't do any kind of bookkeeping because you're not giving a Word document to a tax person. At least I'm not, or my wife would kill somebody.
Yeah.
It is a professional adjusted, super expensed. For us, we use Stessa for all of our receipts. We have everything itemized by property. So if I'm selling you a property and you ask for any receipt, I can give you a whole Stessa file on that property of everything that we do. So if it ties to Airbnb, I'll show you what all our furnishings cost, like all of that. I don't care.
Yeah.
Complete transparency.
I think you're probably a little different than the average bear.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, would you
Standard.
say in terms of the tooling, like to checking the vacancy rate, like in the area where it's the average daily, nightly rate, is it better to use Price Labs than AirDNA?
I hate AirDNA. AirDNA, I have shown in multiple aspects is almost a 20% difference to the high end of the analysis they give you. I don't know if they've updated it. It's been a year and a half since I did the analysis like that, but AirDNA, in my opinion, is a trash product. It's for lazy people who don't want to put in work. Price Labs, they have an amazing tool, but it requires you to do some work. You can go in and you pay for it, but you have a dashboard. It's called the dashboard. And you put in a center address and then a range ring, and the amount of properties that fall into that ring will adjust your cost. But then you can click on each of those and it gives you data on each of the property. Then you plug that into your own spreadsheet and you can get true analysis. And that's how I know that AirDNA was bullshit.
Yeah.
Is by doing my own true. And I did Intel in the Army. And so I love data. And I used to get so pissed when a client would come at me with AirDNA, because some clients would pay for AirDNA and give me these numbers. And I'd be like, here's real life.
Yeah.
But again, with data backed aspects. So 100% I'm going Price Labs. If you don't know truly how to analyze that data within the dashboard, then just tap your network because I guarantee someone does.
Absolutely.
His name's Nick and you can email him.
Yeah, and I'm going to give you Lindsay's contact information. Perfect. Guys, it's 5:05. Any last questions here before we hop? Quickly answering David's question. It didn't sell, buddy. It did just appraise for $330,000, which was $1,000 more than we projected it was going to appraise for. And we are so damn thrilled. We're 100% burning that property. I couldn't be happier. Any last questions here for Lindsay before I let him go off and buy me pizza for dinner?
I have one more comment actually, as it ties to Airbnb.
Yeah.
Because some lending has changed as
Airbnb. Oh, sorry guys. I just want to say thank you. I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
And you guys, I appreciate your time.
Great to see you, buddy.
Yeah. Bye.
Hey, best of luck on your property. How it goes, okay?
Thank you. Paul, talk to you next week.
A lot of conventional lenders will not count the income of Airbnb. Some of them are catching up, some of them are not. What we have had to do on a bunch of them as to continue to grow our portfolio with the Airbnb income is go to commercial lenders. So if you guys are looking at properties, get with your local credit unions. Most of them lend in-house. They have their own lending board and will count 100% of the income. It's got to be have been running for a year or I've had some even
say
6 months.
IUCU will use AirDNA's data. So
That broke my heart.
and
But-
if anybody needs a contact here in Indiana, let me know. I'll connect you with my contact at IUCU.
Yeah.
It's a 25-year amortization, 5-year term that they get to rerun at 5 years.
Yeah.
With a new rate, but definitely a worthwhile conversation to have because they're willing to literally just look at AirDNA as their database.
I love it. And a lot of times at that point, you've had enough backstop of documentation that a conventional lender will look at it. So you can refi out of the commercial loan if they're trying to balloon you on that 5-year term.
Yep, absolutely. Perfect. Any last questions for Lindsay here before I force him to go buy me carbs?
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
guys. Hey, have a good one. Talk soon, guys.
All right, peace, y'all.